is Art History with Kenneth on the KJL Podcast channel, a series where timeless masterpieces are brought to life through the lens of artist and host, Kenneth J. Lewis Sr. Each episode takes viewers on a visual and historical journey, uncovering the stories, styles, and significance behind the world's most influential artists and art movements. From bold brushstrokes to revolutionary ideas, this is where the past meets creative perspective. The journey begins now.
Welcome to Art History Show on the KJL Podcast channel. I'm your host, Kenneth J. Lewis Sr. And today we walk into a world carved not just by hands, but by survival, memory, and unshakable spirit. Herbert Singleton didn't just create art, he left behind testimony. His pieces speak to the blood-soaked history of the American South, to a New Orleans often hidden from tourist brochures, and to the power of creation when nothing else remains. This is wood, blood, and spirit. Herbert Singleton's Southern Testimony. Now let's begin. Early life, the streets as a first teacher. Born in 1945, Herbert Singleton grew up on the rough back streets of Algiers, Louisiana, a hard-edged neighborhood west of the French Quarter. Poverty wasn't just background noise, it was the main event. Schools were overcrowded, opportunity was scarce, and racial lines carved the city like unseen fences. For Singleton, life's first lessons were learned on cracked sidewalks and abandoned lots, not inside classrooms. He learned about injustice early, about how some lives were priced lower than others, and he carried those lessons heavy and sharp, deep into adulthood.
What four categories would you say you work in?
Religion, struggle pieces, struggling with the world, struggling with confusion in the world, any areas like that.
What do you think about the fact that you're famous all around the world, but in your neighborhood, people just know you as Herbert Singleton?
I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about being famous, you know. What I'm worried about is paying light bill, gas bill, rent, and taking care of my business, you know. Family stuff is really out, you know. I like to call, I like to do things, you know. But still, you know, I'm not worried about the family stuff, you know.
Prison and the birth of visual language. Herbert's young life spiraled into violence, the kind fueled by desperation and survival instincts. Arrest followed, and so did incarceration, most notably at Angola, one of the South's most notorious prisons. Angola wasn't just a prison, it was a modern-day plantation where brutality reigned and hope was currency you couldn't afford. It was there, isolated from the outside world, that Singleton began to carve, literally and figuratively. No fine art schools, no mentors, only crude materials, desperate creativity, and an urgent need to give shape to the chaos inside of him.
The pieces I carve, is based on what I think about religion. My ideas, My ideas and my thoughts is just one person's opinion, So I'm just dealing with one person's opinion, my opinion,
Where does your opinions about religion come from?
Looking at what's going on in the world and what's around me and the people I be dealing with,
Return to the streets, the first works. Released back into the streets of New Orleans, Singleton faced a city that hadn't changed, but he had. Without a stable home, without steady work, Herbert returned to survival, this time armed with a new tool, creation. He carved walking sticks first, not delicate canes, but rough staves, inscribed with spirits, animals, warnings. African influences danced alongside the Christian symbols. Crosses tangled with snakes, guardian spirits wrapped around gnarled wood. These were street objects, sacred and profound, sold for cash, wielded as protection, passed from hand to hand. If you're feeling this journey through the heart of Southern art, go ahead, hit the like button, share it with another, and subscribe to the KJL podcast channel. And don't forget to tap that notification bell so you never miss an episode, where art history breathes, moves, and reveals new works. Looking for even more inspiration? Catch the Muse Unveiled show experience, where I transform real people's stories into painted masterpieces. Dive into my creative sessions on Art with Kenneth, where process and passion collide. Another journey with me inside the world's greatest exhibitions on our museum and gallery tours. All here, only on the KJL podcast channel. Now back to the story. Doors as canvas, a radical transformation. Around the early 1980s, something shifted. Herbert stopped carving just sticks and started carving whole doors. Salvaged from abandoned buildings, these battered doors became his new stage. They gave him the space to tell bigger stories, not just symbols, but scenes. Life on the street, crooked police, funerals, baptism, hustlers, saints, and sinners. Each door was a portal, a confession booth, a mirror, forcing America to see the faces it tried to forget.
What's the piece you're working on right now?
Adam and Eve. Like Adam and Eve. ain't nobody never figured out what time of day it was, whether it was an apple or orange or banana, you know. But still, it's in that area, you know. But it's dealing with a woman, you know. To me, I feel like with Adam and Eve, Adam was responsible for everything. So whatever Eve did, you know, he took the responsibilities for what Eve had did.
Do you still think that it applies today, the relationship between men and women, what you're calling about Adam and Eve?
Yeah, man is responsible for his woman.
What way?
And whatever actions she takes, whatever, you're supposed to protect her and take care of her. Because women is they're chaotic. It gets into a lot of things. And you're supposed to deal with the issues that they get into, regardless whether they be right or wrong.
Themes of faith, pain, and testimony. Through Singleton's work, we hear the primal screams of lost and whispered prayers of survival. His religious scenes weren't polished hymns. They were wild revivals, noisy, sweaty, full of spirit and desperation. Faith wasn't a polished idea. It was an anchor in a raging flood. His carving tools didn't just cut wood. They cut through pretense, down to the nerve. Recognition, the art world listens. Collectors finally began to pay attention in the late 80s and 90s. Museums like the American Folk Art Museum and the Odin Museum opened their doors, ironically, to the doors Singleton carved. But he never played the art world game. He kept carving from the same deep well. Testimony for the streets that made him. Testimony for the people still fighting to be seen. Herbert Singleton's powerful and evocative work is housed in several renowned institutions across the country. His pieces are part of the permanent collection of the Smithsonian Institute, Minneapolis Institute of Art, High Museum of Art, Philadelphia Museum of Art, Odin Museum of Art, Perez Art Museum Miami, and the Contemporary Art Center. These prestigious museums and galleries help preserve and showcase the lasting impact of Singleton's art on the cultural landscape. Herbert Singleton's doors didn't just open into rooms. They opened into the soul of a city, raw, wounded, still singing. Thank you for joining me today on the Art History Show right here on the KJL Podcast channel. I'm your host, Kenneth J. Lewis Sr., and stay visionary, stay open, and as always, dig deeper.
Thank you for watching Art History with Kenneth on the KJL Podcast channel. If this episode inspired, informed, or intrigued you, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. Kenneth J. Lewis Sr. returns every other week with more captivating stories from the art world, exploring the legends, the techniques, and the timeless works that continue to shape our creative world. Until the next brushstroke in history, keep watching, keep wondering, and keep the art alive.